Jackson Martinez had seen some weird things during his 3 years fighting in the Galactic Coalition War. He'd watched plasma cannons melt through starship hulls like butter, seen alien warriors with crystalline exoskeletons shatter under human determination, and witnessed the impossible courage of his fellow humans as they pushed back against the Zarathi Empire. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for the sight of a 15-foot dragon staring longingly at his refrigerator at 3 in the morning. Seriously, Ember? Jackson rubbed his eyes and shuffled into the kitchen of his small apartment on New Terra Station. It's just ice cream. The dragon, whose scales shimmered between deep emerald and gold in the artificial lighting, turned her massive head toward him. Her eyes, large as dinner plates and the color of molten copper, held an expression that Jackson had learned to recognize as pure, unadulterated longing. Just ice cream? Ember's voice resonated in his mind through their telepathic bond, a connection forged during those desperate final days of the war. Jackson, human friend, you clearly do not understand the magnitude of what lies within that frozen container. Jackson couldn't help but smile. 6 months ago, he'd been a combat engineer specializing in demolitions and forward reconnaissance. He'd been pinned down behind enemy lines on the contested planet of Kepler 442b when he'd found her, a young dragon, barely past juvenile stage by her species standards, chained and tortured by Zarathi scientists who were trying to weaponize her fire-breathing abilities. The rescue had been pure instinct. Jackson had always been the kind of human who couldn't walk past suffering, whether it was a wounded comrade or an alien prisoner of war. He'd blown the facility's power grid, freed Ember from her restraints, and together they'd fought their way through 12 miles of enemy territory to reach coalition lines. The Zarathi had made one critical error in their assessment of humans. They'd assumed that individual human compassion was a weakness. They hadn't understood that it was actually humanity's greatest weapon, the thing that turned strangers into allies, enemies into friends, and created bonds that could reshape the galaxy. Ember, we've been over this, Jackson said, opening the freezer compartment. The carton of Neapolitan ice cream sat innocently on the top shelf, its colorful label promising 3 distinct flavors in perfect harmony. Dragons don't eat dairy products. Your digestive system can't process. I do not wish to consume it, Ember interrupted, settling her massive bulk on the kitchen floor with surprising grace. I wish to contemplate it. Jackson paused, ice cream carton in hand. During the war, he'd learned that Ember's species had incredibly complex emotional and intellectual lives. Dragons were philosophers, artists, and warriors all rolled into one magnificent package. They approached everything, from battle strategy to morning sunrises, with an intensity that most humans couldn't match. Okay, Jackson said, setting the carton on the counter. Explain it to me. Ember's eyes fixed on the ice cream with laser focus. Consider the miracle of it, Jackson. 3 distinct flavors, vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry, existing in perfect parallel strips, never mixing, never losing their individual identity, yet forming a cohesive whole. Jackson found himself drawn into her perspective, as he often did. Ember had a way of seeing the universe that constantly surprised him. During my captivity, Ember continued, her mental voice growing softer, the Zarathi scientists spoke of their vision for the galaxy. Complete uniformity. All species converted to their way of thinking. All worlds terraformed to their specifications. All cultures absorbed into their empire. A single flavor, if you will. Jackson leaned against the counter, understanding beginning to dawn. But that's not how humans think. Precisely. Ember's copper eyes seemed to glow brighter. Your species saved me not because I was useful to your war effort, though I proved to be, but because you recognized my right to exist as myself. You fought not to make the galaxy human, but to preserve its diversity. She gestured with one delicate claw toward the ice cream carton. That simple container represents everything the Zarathi feared about humanity. 3 different things, coexisting, complementing each other, stronger together than apart. It is beautiful. Jackson looked at the ice cream with new eyes. When he'd first returned from the war, he'd struggled with civilian life. The apartment felt too quiet, the routines too mundane after months of life or death decisions. Having Ember there helped. Her dragon perspective turned everyday objects into sources of wonder and philosophical contemplation. His neighbor Lily knocked on the door, interrupting his thoughts. She was another war veteran, a former Starship pilot who'd been shot down over the same planet where Jackson had found Ember. She often stopped by in the evenings, drawn by the strange family they'd formed. "Hey Jackson, is Ember doing her ice cream meditation again?" Lily called through the door. "How did you know?" Jackson laughed, letting her in. Lily grinned and scratched behind Ember's massive ear ridges, a gesture that never failed to produce a sound remarkably similar to purring from the dragon. "Because last night she spent 2 hours explaining to me how the freezer represents humanity's mastery over entropy, and how refrigeration technology is actually a form of temporal magic." "It is temporal magic," Ember protested. "You take a moment in time, the perfect ripeness of strawberries, the ideal temperature of cream, and you preserve it indefinitely. How is that not miraculous?" Jackson and Lily exchanged glances. This was their life now. Philosophical discussions with a dragon about kitchen appliances, late-night conversations about the nature of existence, and the constant wonder of seeing their mundane human world through ancient wise eyes. The war had changed all of them. Jackson had learned that heroism wasn't about the big moments, it was about the small choices, the daily decisions to show compassion, to preserve what was worth saving. Lily had discovered that home wasn't a place but the people you chose to protect, and Ember had found that freedom meant having the luxury to contemplate the simple beauty of frozen dairy products at 3 in the morning. As Jackson scooped out 3 bowls of ice cream, vanilla for him, chocolate for Lily, and strawberry that Ember would smell but not eat, he reflected on the strange path that had brought them together. The Zarathi had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by humanity's stubborn refusal to see the universe in simple terms. They gathered in the living room, dragon, pilot, and engineer, sharing ice cream and stories as the station rotated through its artificial night cycle. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled by in their ancient patterns, and Jackson thought about how the galaxy was a lot like that ice cream carton. Different species, different worlds, different ways of seeing the universe, all existing side by side, and somehow that was exactly how it should be.